Good day, everybody from Minsk, Belarus. It is exactly 2 o'clock here, and on this March 18th, 2026, and it's a Wednesday, sunny day here in Minsk. Today, I'm mostly going to be talking about the usual things, what's going on in Iran, and maybe a little bit about Ukraine and various other places. And then I'm going to get into a little bit of a comparison about the leader of the United States today and the leader of the NSDAP from Germany in the 1930s. Somebody wrote a comment, and I'm thinking, wow, that's a great comparison. So I'm going to do that at the very end of the video. But let's talk about some of these current events first. What's going on here? We have the counterterrorism chief, Joe Kent. He resigned in the United States, and it's like a guy that's honest and a guy that is very good, and I guess these comes with high praise from Tucker Carlson, and that he's a very good person and a very brave person, and obviously because he's resigning, Donald Trump is going to rip him to shreds. I guess that's already started. You can't believe it. Donald Trump, if you do not do what Donald Trump wants you to do, if you don't think what he wants you to think and act accordingly, then he is going to tear you to shreds. It is like a punishment for not being Donald Trump. You have to be a clone of Donald Trump, I guess. Maybe it's like Lindsey Graham or something. I don't know. Donald Trump, he's definitely got some real mental issues, and there is no doubt about that. And I originally was thinking, that's maybe some of these things will be a positive. Like I was saying at the beginning, I said he is success-oriented, but it's not really that. I don't know, maybe it depends on what he thinks of success. And I was thinking at least he would have a higher moral compass, but he really doesn't. I don't know. You'd have to do a whole video about Donald Trump and his personality. And I'm surprised. I don't know, maybe a lot of people have already. But, you're gleaning a lot about this guy, through a lot of other people's videos. He's got some issues, and there is no doubt about it in the world. Not just the United States. Everybody has to suffer through this guy. It's just like that guy in Germany in the 1930s that came to power. It's pretty much the same thing. And I have to thank that person that wrote that comment, because it is a very worthwhile comparison, because that was a lot of my area of study in the university, and I graduated with honors. And mostly I did a lot of the old history of Germany, like the 30 Years' War and a lot of things like that. And, professors, I signed documents to allow them to use a lot of the research and things that I did I was even an undergraduate, for them to use them in books and things like that. So I got really high grades in that. That's how you graduate with honors and things. I suck in mathematics and things like that. I don't even want to get into that, or chemistry. God forbid, chemistry, keep that away from me. I couldn't, stoichiometry, couldn't balance a chemical equation if my life depended on it. So I'm only starting on the news here with this Joe Kent. Yeah, he seems like a very decent, moralistic guy. He's the type of guy you really want in government, and he mainly resigned because he does not like this whole deal about the Iran war, and he said the honest-to-God truth, that at least 1 billion people on planet Earth have noticed this, and all of the top commentators in the United States, anybody that denies this is lying to themselves, that Israel exercises a massive amount of control over the United States. And Donald Trump, unfortunately, and I hate to say this, he seems to be compromised. Israel controls Donald Trump, and I don't know. I would normally say Benjamin Netanyahu, but nobody is quite certain where Benjamin Netanyahu is at. And they have a lot of AI videos out. It shows you how incredible AI is, but the time when he was in the coffee shop, everybody's talking about that. He's got a coffee cup filled to the brim with coffee that doesn't slosh out when he's moving his arm around, and he takes a big drink, but it doesn't go down. So I don't know. A lot of people would probably like a coffee like that, where you can drink it all day long and the level never goes down. You know, I'm a coffee person myself. I'm not a big drinker, but I used to grow it, as I know. I like things like that. You guys know that about me already. Some maybe don't, newer people. Okay, last night I ran. It's an attack, I guess or attacks maybe altogether, caused over 200 Israeli casualties. In what way? That I don't know if that's wounded and dead, or were they referring to maybe dead? A lot of people are getting very badly injured and dying in Israel because of the attacks. And it's possible or probable that more people are dying in Iran, of course. A lot of people are dying in Israel's, total bombardment of Lebanon, the southern parts of Lebanon, and even now they are bombarding central Beirut. Before they were bombing southern Lebanon and southern Beirut, the capital of Lebanon, and now they're bombing in the center. And they're bombing, the usual. Oh, we don't target civilians, but the usual, they're bombing apartment buildings, hospitals, schools. That's the chief things. It's kind of like the U.S. The U.S. does not, they also bomb schools and hospitals and apartment buildings, but, to a lesser extent. At least you can say that they're evil people and they like to kill civilians, the United States, but, Israel much, much more, and they do it purposefully and specifically to try to do that. And if they can kill children, that is part of their culture, and that is an undeniable truth, is to kill children of your enemy. Amalek, maybe, I guess, kill their dogs and cats. I think that's part of that culture. And it is really terrible that you have these ideologies and within these certain peoples, and they're allowed to, and maybe even fanning the flames, they're allowed to flourish. And the United States, it's absolutely incredible that, like I said, they're feeding the fire and they want this sort of a thing. And there are good Israelis, there's no doubt about it. A lot of them are not, though. There's a lot of them that they want to kill. They want to kill, and they feel they're more superior than everybody else on earth. That is a sad fact, and I hate to say that. I would normally never say that, but that's a fact, and everybody knows that. I mean, you hear Jews in America talking about that, Norman Finkelsteiner, or I don't know if Max Blumenthal really goes that far. He knows they exist, but I don't know if he would say that is the majority of the people there. I don't know. But a lot of them are leaving, and, to get out of there. Maybe those are the good ones. I don't know. The same sort of thing is going on in Ukraine. They get these ideologies and they raise you that way, and they indoctrinate you, that there's either somebody else or everybody else are evil. Even Barack Obama was trying to do that. He was coming up with something like the American people are the exceptional people, which means that everybody else on earth is unexceptional. But because when you're exceptional, that means you are the exception to the rule. And everybody is unexceptional, but Americans are exceptional. That's terrible. The chosen people, God's chosen people, the master race, I don't know. These are all, let me say, they have a new definition of fascism. Fascism is normally a economic system, that fits within socialism. But after the time of Mussolini and Hitler, they came up with a new, definition of it, and it's something. It's what it actually is. It's Nazism, to be honest with you. So it isn't a fascist statement. It's a Nazi statement by even Barack Obama. Yes, but I'll talk about Barack Obama and a comparison of his attitude towards Iran, and compare that to Donald Trump's. That's going to be part of this. Also, this comparison of this guy from Germany, the National Socialist. Fascinating stuff, and it's all true. It's all true. Anybody that studied history will have to acknowledge what I'm going to be saying is all true. It's a little bit of mixing ancient history with contemporary history. Okay. in using multiple bunker buster bombs, the pedophile coalition, and I believe it was Israel this time, they were able to assassinate Ali Laranjani. He's the security person. He's like, maybe, even though it's different than in the United States, almost like a minister of defense or something like that. But they were able to kill him. And his replacement is going to be worse. You know, it's absolutely incredible that a lot of these people, they don't really think these things through. Like, it was very strange when you remember that apparently while Vladimir Putin was speaking to Donald Trump on the telephone, the CIA was launching 91 drones to kill Vladimir Putin while he's talking on the phone to Donald Trump. And whether Trump probably knew about this too. But anyway, apparently it didn't work, apparently. And a lot of people, oh no, it was aimed at this other facility that was just happened to be in the area very close to Valdai where Vladimir Putin was at. But, you know, if they ever do assassinate Vladimir Putin, you know, have they ever thought on who is going to be his replacement? And it's nearly always during a time of war or hostilities, when you kill the leader, your replacement is going to be somebody even more hostile. So you think it's going to be somebody, oh, well, let's make peace. 99% of the time, it's not going to happen. It didn't happen in Iran just now, and it wouldn't happen in Russia either. So, okay, last night, the U.S. dropped multiple 5,000-pound deep penetrator missiles. No, I mean, it was, I don't know, maybe you call it bombs. They dropped these bombs on missile positions around the Strait of Hormuz. And that's weird because that day before that, Iran has been letting a lot more ships go through the Strait of Hormuz, you know, back and forth. But of course, probably not the U.S. ones. And the U.S. doesn't really give a crap about anybody else's ships. They just want theirs somehow that benefits them. So, you know, that's how they think. I mean, obviously. So it's not, oh, we're going to do this for all of humanity. Yeah. Uh-huh. But even if they did, even if they let all the ships through, I think they're still, Donald Trump has got it in his head. I think he wants to control the Strait of Hormuz. So it's very he probably wants to control all of Iran. Good luck on that one. I think he's being advised not to. Oh gosh, let me just keep going. It's a lot of interesting things in this video here. So also last night, Israel conducted, you know, heavy bombardment of central Beirut, like I said. And in one, there was at least 4 dead, but they're going to find a lot more because that's only in the preliminaries. They have to, undo all the rubble because that was an apartment building that they killed those. We don't target civilians. That's the other guys. That's the Iranians. Why isn't there so many people dead in rubble in Israel then? I guess not. So, last night, Israel also tried to kill the minister of intelligence in Iran, but he's not staying in his house. So I think they bombed his house, but he's not staying there. Oh, that's great intelligence. Well, maybe they got a tip or something, you know. They're getting always normally good intelligence, and there's a lot of people that are willing to take some money, and that's how it's done anyway. And there's a lot of ways they can find out where people are at. You know, they were using the CCTV. They hacked into all the CCTV cameras and they could watch everything. I think that's probably not possible now. I don't know. And Israel removed all of their CCTV cameras, thinking that the Iranians were looking at them. So I guess, I don't know. I guess you have a lot more privacy in these places, even if you're going to have a bigger chance of getting bombed, I guess. And what else? Libya's oil infrastructure was actually bombed again. Now, they've been getting bombed off and on since 2011. Anyway, I guess, since this time with when the United States had Gaddafi assassinated. Remember Hillary Clinton. We came. We saw. He died. you know. So, she was celebrating back then. I think it was in the Obama days, when they killed Gaddafi. Even after they promised him, they weren't, that he was going somewhere to do something. And normally you have this sort of a diplomatic immunity, but that stuff does not exist anymore. The United States does not even go for that anymore. They're not, I mean, they're going to lie to every leader. They're going to lie to anybody. They're going to say, yeah, we're not going to do anything. Is that what happened in Saddam Hussein? I'm trying to think about that. Yeah, that's exactly what happened. I guess Saddam Hussein, back in the days of the Iraq War, if you guys don't remember this sort of stuff, and General Schwarzkopf, he was there before the war started, of course. And but anyway, through the United States mission, I think, because what was happening is in Kuwait was stealing Iraq's oil. That's the beginning of slant oil drilling. And they had slant, the things, and they were stealing the oil out of Iraq and sucking it up across the border and into Kuwait. And of course, the Americans were the ones that were doing it with them. And I think there was some sort of an agreement that Saddam Hussein was going to do something, and the Americans said, yeah, go ahead, we're not going to get involved in your squabbles. And of course they did, and then the war started. It was actually a provocation. It's very much like what happened in Ukraine, and that's what the U.S. does. And it's another thing like Israel. By way of deception, thou shalt make war. So they deceive, and the U.S. is big into that too. I don't know. There are certain countries that do have a sense of honor, such as Russians maybe, and Iranians and people like that. But then you have a lot of these Western countries. They have no sense of honor. The French don't. The Americans don't. The British don't. Germans, I don't know. I don't know about any incidences. I know the British have lied and cheated, and so have the French, and so have the Americans. And I think some of the Scandinavian countries have done that as well. We can go back to Gustavus Adolphus, maybe back in the 1600s. He would do a lot of deceptions as well. But actually, when you think about it, the great elector of Brandenburg, Frederick William, he did some things like that, but he only did it for alliance purposes so that he can maneuver around and stay alive. That was when Prussia was a smaller state and they weren't yet so incredibly militaristic. That was before the time of Frederick the Great. Anyway, that's a different story. So we came, we saw, he died. And it's similar to Trump. You see how gleeful Trump is whenever he kills people. When he kills somebody important, he is really happy. I remember he was going to Israel the last time he went there, and he was laughing and begging, and he was talking and bragging and all that he killed Soleimani, and and they were all cheering and all that, and I don't know. And he's cheering now, of course, that he killed Khamenei, an 86-year-old man that really didn't want to have anything to do with war, but wanted to preserve his country. Now they got somebody who's younger and is just going to keep the war going. As a matter of fact, they're just following the principles of the old guy that they just killed. He may as well still be alive. I don't know. So, okay. Iran is using a lot of these cluster missiles, and if you've seen some of the damage from these, it's not really, it's like a dumpster fire. A car catches on fire and all that. So that they're not really, they might hit, I don't know if there's 30 of these things within a bomb, and then it opens up and they're in various places. It's probably doing a lot of small material damage in places, but it's not like a big bomb that makes a big crater. So is that I don't know. Maybe they have their time and their place, and maybe, I don't know, Iran is using those for specific purposes. I'm not in their shoes, so I don't know. But if you look like at what Israel is using on Lebanon, they use big bombs that nobody on earth would ever use in like urban centers. And the United States couldn't give them to anybody. And of course, Israel takes them all, and that makes the factories go full bore in the United States, making these massive bombs to kill an entire city block, blow up, huge areas. And you see these huge buildings, really, I mean, it's like apartment buildings. They're wide. They go like an entire city block, and the entire things, the missile comes through, goes through the roof, gets down to the foundations, and it blows it all up, and the entire building collapses. And they have film footage of that, and all the people in it, I presume. Real nice guys, the Israelis. Okay. An internal, this is incredible. Listen to this one. This one is going to get you. I don't know if a lot of people are going to be talking about it because it has to do with paperwork, but listen to this. Listen to this. This is from Donald Trump's government. So it's an internal U.S. State Department report based on the U.S. and Israeli intelligence in Iran. And it states that the pedophile, well, they didn't say the pedophile coalition, that's my word, that they greatly underestimated Iran's resilience. That is practically their words. They did say that. They underestimated their resilience. And so when you read between the lines, this is from the start of the war. This is based on how it started and basically how it is continuing. So if you read between the lines what this is saying, and let me put this in my words, it says the original intelligence was doctored, so they faked it. They faked the oh, who did that? Oh, have you ever heard of a place called Israel? So they doctored the intelligence, they falsified it like they do all the time. The U.S. does it too. Remember when they tried to get George Galloway and they falsified documents, trying to say he was doing in business with Saddam Hussein back in those days? And so they subpoenaed him to come to the, to the Senate or something, and he actually went. He actually went, and he wiped the floor. It's probably still on the internet, and he proved them all wrong, and they falsified documents and everything against George Galloway, who's on YouTube all this talking about this war as well. Absolutely incredible. So anyway, this time the Israelis, they falsified, they doctored intelligence, false intelligence. Oh, that's a surprise, isn't it? They do it in the U.S. too. False information in order to get the U.S. on board, in going into a war. And even Marco Rubio came right out and said, oh, well, they said they're going to attack if we don't, so we had to go. I mean, whatever. It's just, they were planning on going in anyway. They wanted to go in. So it's another by way of deception, shut the war. So, but it also helps, if you have a president at that time that has a very low IQ, and lacks the intelligence that that at least the past presidents all had. Bill Clinton, you can go back even before Bill Clinton and Barack Obama and even Joe Biden. They would not go into a war with Iran. Even Joe Biden is smarter than Donald Trump, apparently. So Donald Trump doesn't know what the heck he's going to do because he really, and that's what this report is basically saying. It's basically saying he's a stupid idiot, and all these people that wanted to start this are a bunch of stupid idiots. So there's a little bit more, it says. So, particularly, let's see. I didn't say that yet. Okay. I don't know, my words, it's like it's a stupid move for starting a war by killing a religious leader whose favor stretches far beyond the borders of Iran. So you are getting a lot of people. And they assassinated an 86-year-old man and his family, his daughter and his grandson, or his granddaughter, little children. I mean, that's nothing new for the United States. They'll gladly collateral damage. They'll kill 1,000 people gleefully if they could get him. And that's how the United States does operate. It's very strange because Iran does not do that. They see it as sin is to kill innocent people. And remember when Rigi, who was this leader of the Jundala, who was a terrorist group, and this was quite a while ago. I don't know, when was this? I don't remember who was president, quite a while ago. But anyway, he was doing something, maybe it was in Afghanistan, I believe, and he was making deals with NATO to kill planting bombs and killing like large numbers of people in Iran, which he did. And the Iranian intelligence found out about this guy. So they found out he's actually quite a young guy. And so they found out where this guy was at, and then they found out that when he was going to be on an airplane. So what Iran did, instead of like what the United States does and has done many, many, many times, which is shoot the airplane down to get one person. So they kill everybody on board just to get one person. That's what the US does. But Iran forced the airplane to land. And I'm not even sure anymore which country. Maybe it was in Iran, but they forced them to land. Oh gosh, how terrible. Look at how much of an inconvenience that was for all of these passengers on there that now are not dead. They got to live. So anyway, they took this guy off the plane, this leader of the Jundala, Rigi, and they took him. It's similar to well, no, I won't go into that one. But anyway, they took this guy, and of course they interrogated him and all that sort of thing, and then he confessed. They even have it on video that this guy's confessed, and he knew that he was going to get the death penalty. And he confessed, and he freely confessed, and then that's when they found out, of course, that it was probably the United States. He said, but they didn't say that, even though Iran knows. They just said a NATO country, which is probably the US, and then they were arranging to do this, to bomb and kill people in Iran. So, we don't target civilians. So anyway, so they killed a religious leader, and they're trying to kill a lot of other people. And of course, at the same time, it started with bombing and killing 171 elementary school girls, as well as the leader of a religion, and thinking, oh, this is going to be great. It's like they are so intelligent that they did not realize anything basic whatsoever about Iran and the Iranian system. And they think, oh, then everything is going to be over and all the people will rebel. I think that was what they were saying. Israel is probably telling the United States all this time, oh, all the people they hate the government, they all hate. There is probably a certain amount, but there's a lot that don't like the American government. I am one of them. I'm not going to blow anything up. I'm not going to kill anybody or nothing like that. I don't like that government. I don't like them at all. And there's Americans that live here. They don't like that government either. Hey, I can promise you there are millions in the United States that don't like that government. I mean, I'm nothing like these people that take these fake things look like heads of Donald Trump and make it all bloody and wave it around. I'm not going to do anything like that. There's people that are far more radical in the United States against the U.S. government than I am. It doesn't mean maybe they hate the U.S. Of course they don't. But, there are far more that hate the United States government than that hate the Iranian government in Iran. Oh, well, I didn't know that. Anyway, so let's see. But anyway, it's very difficult for the United States to win the hearts and minds of people when they very cowardly kill an 86-year-old man and 171 schoolgirls. I mean, they're big and brave, like Hegseth. We're brave and everything. They're hiding in caves. That's why it was so easy to get them, because they're walking around on the streets. That's not in caves. Like Benjamin Netanyahu, nobody even knows where he's at. But all of those people in Israel, I don't blame the regular civilians, but anyway. But they're all hiding in caves. They all have their bomb shelters because they rile up their neighbors so bad for decade after decade after decade. They attack them, they bomb them, they ridicule them. So they have to build bomb shelters to protect themselves if these people ever do decide to take their vengeance out after Israel has been bombing them for all this time and stealing their land, stealing their water, and doing everything. You have to read some of these books from Leon Uris, and there's one, I think it was The Hodge. I'm not sure, I read a couple from him, but he wrote a lot of these novels. They're novels, of course, so they're funner to read and all that. And he is actually pro-Israel, but he at least talks about how, during the time after the British sold that land that did not belong to them, to these Zionists, and they came there and they took over wherever the source of the water is, and then they proceeded to starve out the Palestinians, trying to get them to leave and go somewhere else, which is still continues today. even in Lebanon, like the Tani River. I don't know. I talk all day about this stuff. Okay. So, another part of this report, it underscored something called a broader, they called it broader miscalculation by the United States. A broader miscalculation. And let me put that in other words. You read this report. In the other words, it says Donald Trump's, wait a minute. Well, in other words, I would say Donald Trump's State Department is clearly a bunch of idiots, because it's a broader miscalculation. So they're stupid. They're very stupid, and they didn't know what the heck they were doing, and they thought something that wasn't true. And yeah, it's a stupid move that I don't know. Everybody knows that by now. Look at all these other, even the stupid people in Europe. They won't even go along with that. The stupid leaders, what I'm saying, not the people. Yeah, the idiotocracy, the idiots in there, like not even what's her name, Ursula von der Leyen, who virtually doesn't do anything right. She's running the whole friggin' continent into the ground, and she got reelected. It's like, what the heck is going on? And then and they go after Viktor Orban and Robert Fico, and now they're going after what's his name, De Web, who's the leader of Belgium now, the prime minister, because he said, well, maybe we should talk to the Russians and make a deal. How dare you? And maybe the Czech leader now. So they're starting to get some people now that are realizing, hey, we're making way too many mistakes. I don't know about the Germans. They somehow they put this Merz in there. Here they had Alice Weidel from the Alternative for Deutschland party, and she was saying we have to stop doing all this stupid stuff. And they made sure she didn't win the election. And it's really weird. Right after the election, it turns out that she is the most popular leader of a political party in all of Germany. But, she wasn't. Right at the election, just a few days before that. In other words, they cheat on their elections there too. It's much more difficult in Germany. It's a very complicated system. Actually you cast 2 votes. I think it's one for the party and one for the leader. And I didn't really understand that when I went to school in, what do you call it, Berufsschule in Germany, and I didn't hardly understand it because it's so much different than the U.S. system. So anyway, I don't make any jokes about myself. Okay. Yeah, but anyway, the idiotocracy, they're not even going to help Donald Trump. I mean, then you really know it's stupid. Here they have this big power of the United States, but you know what the United States would do? Just like what they did in Ukraine. They would get them hooked, they would get them to go there, and then the United States would slowly back out, and then those other people would be stuck holding the bag, having a war against Iran, just like what they're doing, the United States is trying to do with Ukraine. Even though the United States now makes money, and they're given the weapons and the intelligence and all sorts of other things, they do in some of the secret operations, like trying to assassinate Putin and bombing all of the energy infrastructure, the pipelines and the pumping stations and a lot of other things too. So, but at least everybody thinks they're out of it. Anyway. And Zelensky, of course, he wants to send the Ukrainian. He loves to see his people put into meat grinders. He would love to see that. He said that. He said that he would like to send he's busy at this war on his eastern border, but otherwise he would love to send Ukrainians to go to that meat grinder as well. I mean, it looks like he's part of this move, and Robert Fico even talked about it, and I've talked about it because historically, hundreds of years ago, it was very similar. It is to eliminate Slavic peoples. They hate the Slavic peoples in the Europeans. And the time that America was only just starting to get colonized. When I realized back then the beginnings of the Holy Roman Empire and all that, they hated the Slavic peoples back then. And it's never stopped. And you find another, person with a IQ not any bigger than Donald Trump's, whose name is Zelensky, and he's, only happy to help, trying to eliminate Eastern Slavs, his own people as well as the Russian, and and the West sits back and watches all these, that basically they're all Russians, watching all the Russians die, and they're very happy. And Zelensky, being the idiot instrument that he is. Wow. So it's not only Zelensky, but the great mighty superpower of Estonia. They also said that they would help. They would send their entire military, 400 people, and 17 chihuahuas, armored chihuahuas. And of course, Iran has heard that, and they probably are ordering some extra pants for all their soldiers. So when these chihuahuas are coming up and biting their pant legs, they'll have a replacement pair of pants afterwards. So that's a very smart move. No, but anyway, Estonia did say that they would contribute. But when it comes right down to it, I don't think they're going to. They're not going to make, obviously they're probably going to send some equipment or something. They're not going to send their people. Yeah. Or any chihuahuas, I don't think. Maybe they might, I don't know. Did they send some chihuahuas? You never know. Israel, as you know, I said, how many people have to tell you this? The Young Turks, Tucker Carlson, everybody, that they purposefully, and everybody knows this, you can go back decades and decades, they purposefully want to kill civilians, especially children. There is no doubt about that. But they also want to kill paramedics and doctors and things like that. So, like, what was it? I think 150 or 153 they've killed altogether already in Lebanon, paramedics and doctors. And just a few days ago, they killed another 12 paramedics. And, that's a lot of this is the double tap thing. So, and that's one reason why they do the double tap. So when some place gets bombed and they wait 20 minutes or something like that, then they bomb it again because they know that there's going to be ambulances there. They destroy the ambulances and kill all the people that are trying to, find these other people that might be wounded underneath the rubble. Maybe get them out and get them to a hospital. And then you can save their lives. But they're trying to tell everybody, stay away, let them all die, or else we'll kill you too. Yeah. And Jimmy Dore even had a guy on there, on one of his things, who just left from that region over there. And there's so many people, and Doctors Without Border, and they all will tell you the same thing that I'm just telling you now. But we don't target civilians. Yeah. Well, Jimmy Dore had another guy on there too. It's all just totally ridiculous. And the U.S. does, like I said as well. They just don't do it as much, but the Israelis love it. And of course, even the Ukrainians are not as bad as the Israelis. They certainly do target civilians, and they bomb all the time. And I think a lot of time that the Russians are actually holding down a lot of the information when the Ukrainians are actually bombing people in apartment buildings and houses in Donbass. So many houses and things have been in schools and everything. It's the same thing. They're just one and the same. The Israelis and the Ukrainians, you know that. Okay. Cuba is suffering. And it's a starvation sort of a deal. And Donald Trump fully well knows this. It's not just keeping oil out of there. And of course, they're in blackouts. There's no lights, I think, at nighttime in all of Cuba. And they're trying to find ways, so people maybe could cook. And of course, they can't. The currency has totally collapsed. It's worthless unless you can possibly get some dollars or euros, which at least 99% of the people don't. Very few people can get this. And apparently then I guess you can buy something. I don't know. So the value of the money is gone. You might have pesos, but, Cuban pesos, but it's not going to get you anywhere. And I think Mexico is trying to help. I don't know. I think they're sending ships, but if they even are, I don't think the United States is going to let them come in. And Russia, of course, I think is sending things. I don't know. It's probably a drop in the bucket if they are even able to get through. Normally, it would be Venezuela helping, but as you know, Venezuela is not their own country anymore, unfortunately. And a lot of this stuff, I guess, has been happening at least, it's been happening since 1962, of course, but a lot of this has been getting worse and starting to slowly accelerate since 1991 for some odd reason, but it's really bad now. And the population is dropping, and I don't know if it's from starvation or people leaving or both or whatever. But I guess Donald Trump is, I mean, in a sense, it's Operation Starvation. That's what Donald Trump's thing is right now. And he's in there now bragging. He's bragging that he's going to basically take Cuba now because he's got it so miserable. And the people are suffering so badly. And apparently he found his way to take Cuba. He, like he took Venezuela. He's going to take Cuba. He thinks he's going to take Iran, but he's not going to. And, they're kind of celebrating at times, the Israelis and all that. I don't know, that they getting Iran. I don't know. I think they're jumping the gun a little bit. Lets you know what their IQs are like, too. And Trump says he will have the big honor of taking Cuba. And his words were, whether I free it, take it, I can do anything I want with it. They are a very weakened nation. And he was saying it's a failed state, as if it's some kind of a big, I talked about that the last video, big insult, but it's a failed state. It maybe is. Why? Because the U.S. has made it that way, not from their own. They were actually doing really good when you compare. I mean, talk about the resistance. These people, they have old cars from the 1950s because they can't get anything in, and they just keep repairing these old cars. It's amazing people. There's a lot of amazing people in the world today. When you look at this, people from Yemen, it's the poorest country in the Middle East. A lot of these people don't have a pot to piss in, and look at Israel, and the United States helping as well, trying to mow the grass, as they say, keeping these countries poor. All these people, they want them all poor. Gaza, they want them poor, and Israel wants to take it, of course, on the West Bank, and they are moving, and they're taking the West Bank as time goes. And Hezbollah is still resisting. And I don't know that Israel has gotten anything permanent yet in southern Lebanon. Talk about resistance. It's absolutely incredible that these people, will go against evil. And Yemen, for example, they went to have that, I guess you could call it, this mini war against Israel and the United States, solely to help the people of Gaza, because they didn't like seeing all these children getting killed, these people getting bombed and everything taken away from them. These people are the leaders of the free world. There's no doubt about it. You can look at Iran, Lebanon, all of these people. These are much greater people than what somehow has come about in the West. In the West, unfortunately, I mean, hey, I'm a Western person, and I'm not talking about each and every individual, but look at what our society has created compared to these people there. It's, these are admirable people. That's all mostly what I want to say. So the Marines that Donald Trump is sending in to possibly start his ground invasion to get his, so he can brag, I guess. He has to brag. Donald Trump, he's got to, I am the best. I am the Donald Trump. I am God. So he is sending these troops. They're called 911 Force. I don't know if it's 9/11. I think it's 911 Force. And I guess he's going to send in, I saw 2,200, but this one report said 2,500. Maybe they upped it. And they need a lot of support people there. There's normally more support than there are troops. I mean, when you think about it, because they have to send a lot of things in, some of the food and everything else. But they're moving these people from Japan, and you listen about all these assets. It's not just some troops and some guys with some rifles running around. It is a whole entire military. And I'm saying that this 2,500, it's probably just those that are going to be operating the machineries and firing, and with rifles and all the equipment that they're going to be having. And I don't think they have any tanks. They might have. I didn't see tanks listed, but there's a lot of equipment. And this is supposed to be a combat ready rapid reaction force, this 911. And they have a few planes. as well as Ospreys. Ospreys are, what are they, planes or helicopters? You know, the roto-tilt, you know, they're a plane when the propeller's forward, and when they aim it up, it's like a helicopter. So, but they have a lot of other helicopters, or rotary wings, I guess you could say. They're sending amphibious vehicles, obviously quite a few, because they're going to have to land somehow, and if they go storm the beaches like Normandy or something, they're sending a lot of 155 millimeter howitzers. Hey, Zelensky said he wanted those, and you said you didn't have them. Anyway, so they're sending 155 millimeter howitzers as well, and forklifts, trucks, bulldozers. Of course, they need a lot of that stuff. It's a complete military. It's like engineering. They have probably their own engineers. I can't believe that it's 2,500. It's more than that. It's going to definitely be more than that. These are just, I believe, the people that do the fighting. And then you can actually rest assured that there's going to be probably another 5,000. But I don't know why they're telling us 2,500. It's going to be more. 2,500. Well, what is that? That's like a large battalion. And technically that could be enough, but I don't think it is. I think they're going to be sending more. I think they're going to send a lot more. And normally a battalion does not have such assets like that, airplanes and so many helicopters and all sorts of other equipment. So I don't think so. So let's keep going here. You may have heard that France wants to put Europe under a nuclear umbrella. So, like maybe Donald Trump's, Golden Dome. You know, Golden Dome, it kind of reminds me of, what the U.S. government normally does is, they stand over you and they piss on you and they tell you it's raining. So that's probably Donald Trump's golden shower. Golden Dome. So, like he's lies to everybody about nearly everything nowadays. And there was some people, I tell you what, a lot of people, you see them, people you never heard of, and they're big in the administration and other places, and they are just shaking their heads wondering what the heck happened to Donald Trump, And they know, well, anyway, I've talked about all that stuff anyway. So anyway, what France is talking about, they mean, nuclear bombs in the Baltic states, in Finland and Poland. Now, Finland, they said, oh, we don't want nukes. Yeah, well, everybody can say anything, one day, and the next day they change their mind. So, that would be a very dumb move if you think about it. It's a dumb move to put a whole bunch of nukes. What do you think Russia is going to nuke you? I'll tell you what, Lukashenko might nuke you if you attack Belarus, But I'm sure he's going to use the Orishniks first, and he probably won't even do that first. Maybe he would. Belarus is completely difficult to defend. It's a flat area. They can just roll, like Lukashenko said, and just like what happened, Operation Barbarossa, they just move in and roll right over Belarus. So you have to have an intelligent leader, which luckily we do, to keep the wolves at bay, which is an incredible thing. Okay, so yeah, at the moment France has about 300 warheads, and they're all for launching from like planes and from ships, particularly submarines. So they don't really have much of anything land launched. So it's going to be a new territory for France if they're going to think about they're going to be doing that sort of thing. Okay, now comes this comparison that I was going to go into, and compare like the rise of Hitler and compare that to the rise of Trump. Now, the thing about Adolf Hitler was, he came about, he was, of course, a corporal in World War I, and he loved Germany, obviously, and he's from Austria. Was it Braunau? I'm not even sure. Anyway, you can go to the town, and I guess there you don't even see, you will never know which house that he actually lived in, because, they don't like that, but I guess his house is even still there. And there's a lot of other things, about him, and, the beer hall putsch and all that sort of a thing, and his time in, was it Landstuhl? What is the name of that prison where he was in? Anyway, and he wrote Mein Kampf. But anyway, what happened was in World War One, Germany, actually, the military did not lose. Germany's military was undefeated. But what was happening is there was trouble in Germany, and so they surrendered, basically, through domestic disputes and troubles back then. And the military said, hey, we're on French soil, and what is going on? Why are we surrendering? We are actually making headway, and the British, the French, and the Americans are not. We're actually beating them. But what happened? They called that the stab in the back. That in German history, it's called the stab in the back, because the military felt stabbed in the back because they weren't losing, but yet the government surrendered. And what happened was, and there was a warning coming, actually, even from that terrible economist called John Maynard Keynes. He was actually, he's not really a real economist. I think he was a bookkeeper for a school bookkeeper. And one of the reasons why he had this little claim of fame, even though other people said it as well, but it's partly, he might even fit in the Epstein class, because he was a homosexual. And I think he was married, but he was homosexual. And maybe he just knew the right people, if you know what I'm meaning. It's just like Zelensky and Starmer and Macron, they kind of go in that direction as well. Merz, I didn't see. Maybe he does too, but I haven't seen. I know that the other three do, but anyway. So maybe that got him into different circles. But he was saying, John Maynard Keynes, and actually Woodrow Wilson would have said the same thing, because they were putting very heavy reparations on Germany. And it was more reparations than any country could ever withstand. And Germany would have had to pay them probably up into the 1990s. It was impossible to pay it back. And Woodrow Wilson said, you can't do that. That is just, it was like, basically Germany would have never, ever recovered. But they did. And you know how they did? Because of a guy called Adolf Hitler. But they made Germany sign the Treaty of Versailles it was in a rail car. In any way, that it was really humiliating. The whole idea was to really humiliate Germany. And that was the Kaiser Wilhelm. He was kind of an arrogant guy, I guess. And it actually cost him his position. And anyway, Germany was thrown into, they went into the Weimar Republic, where it went from a monarchy to I guess they called it a republic, but it was their first, it was compelled upon them. It was basically democracy. And it wasn't really working, obviously, because you had the rise of a guy named Adolf. And the people were humiliated. They could not possibly pay that back. And Germany was it was far richer than Great Britain or any country in Europe at the time of World War I. It was going through tremendous, tremendous wealth. Industrialization like you would never believe. And a lot of that is a credit to Bismarck until he got fired, I guess. I think that was in 1890, and the British called it the dropping of the pilot. Bismarck was brilliant, and he kept Europe from going to war from like 1870 all the way up until he was gone. And then, of course, everything started to unravel when Kaiser Wilhelm kind of took over. And then that's when we had World War I. But anyway, the Germans felt humiliated, and then you get this guy who he tried the beer hall putsch and all that sort of a thing, but he rose to power. He was kind of a real gangster. He had his brown shirts, and he won the chancellorship. And then right after that, the president of Germany died, which was Hindenburg. I think it was Otto von Hindenburg. And Adolf he consolidated the presidency and the chancellorship into one office. And then, of course, it was the Third Reich, which was, and a lot of people didn't really like Adolf so much, the Germans, and all that, saw him too radical. The brown shirts is kind of like ice in America. So that's the ice shirts. Anyway, no, not quite so much, but that is what people would, if you wanted to really make comparisons, people maybe would do that. But anyway, Adolf, he was basically saying how Germany got ripped off, and they did get ripped off. They got badly ripped off, and they really did after World War I, and humiliated and ripped off. And that's what brought about the rise of Adolf, and that's mostly where I'm going to be leaving that. And then now we get fast forward up to Donald Trump. So Donald Trump comes in, and he's telling everybody that we're the laughing stock because of these other presidents, and they're all ripping us off with tariffs. So we have to put tariffs because they're stealing our money, And it's kind of like in retrospect, or what do you call that? Not retrospect. What's the other word for that? Retroactively. So he's like a retroactive Adolf. So Adolf did it beforehand, and Donald Trump made the presidency, and he's using it and saying, they did that to us, and therefore we have to go after all of them, basically the entire world. Donald Trump takes his pick. Which one's Canada? Damn them, Canada. So that's maybe what he's probably trying to find some way to take over Canada. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe, what was that? What was Alberta? No, which was the province that they were working on? Was Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, and he's wants them to declare their independence at one of the provinces of Canada, and starting from there, and then maybe go to the other ones, and then take Greenland, and then he wants to make it into his, I don't know, Adolf wanted to do that first. As you remember, I should say that too, I didn't put that part of Adolf. He took the Sudetenland, that's where he started out, and the very first place he went into, but the people were cheering him. They were cheering him in the streets. They were cheering that, and it was like, you would think that Germany felt emboldened that the people, but actually they wanted to. Then they were mostly German peoples in that part of the Czech Republic, the Sudetenland. And so he incorporated that. And it's like this guy named Donald Trump, he was emboldened when he easily got Venezuela. So he was emboldened to go further. Adolf, and so was Donald. So there are some similarities between these two peoples. It's absolutely incredible. I'm sure you can find a lot more. And of course, Donald, and probably Adolf did this too, he's talking about this JCPOA? Terrible, terrible, Obama, the worst deal in history, when it actually was absolutely amazing. That was one of the very best things that Barack Obama ever did, was he made that agreement with Iran. He stopped all the hostilities. Everything was fine. Everybody was happy. It was great. And then part of the deal was that some of the money that the United States stole from Iran, which they stole a lot of money. They stole, I don't know, some billions or something, and then Obama agreed to give that back because it's not American money. That was Iran's money. And Iran was happy with the United States then. Everything was fine and honky-dory. Of course, they still didn't trust the United States, but I'll bet you that's when everything was a lot cooler. But then you have entered Donald Trump. We're gonna get them, and obviously he's a stoolie of Israel, and whatever Israel wants, Donald Trump will do. So there it all started then, tore up that. Donald Trump tore up the transatlantic partnership, was a very good thing. That was, the new word fascism. Well, it's kind of a mix of real fascism and it is. It's real fascism, and it's like people don't matter, and it's actually like Nazism. It's where the super duper rich class, the Epstein people, they say everything, they get anything they want. And the only thing that was actually really reduced or released about the transatlantic partnership is that, for example, they used an example, and as a matter of fact, it came about right after that. And it's like, they already knew this, and this was what the whole plan was about. It's absolutely incredible that if they ever created a vaccine, and this is the truth, this is the honest to God truth, this was the example, and that if a lot of people died from this vaccine, then they have no recourse for any compensation whatsoever. It's basically, They just give you the little finger and you say, get out of here. You know, yeah, your kids all died, get out of here. Your mother died, get out of here, you know. So and that's what the transatlantic partnership was all about. Profits ruled everything. Profits, profits, profits. People did not matter. So that was a very good thing that Donald Trump, you did some very good things, Donald Trump. He's coming up with this, what is this new law? This thinking about America thing where people have to show who they are when they're voting and things like that. That's another good thing. So Donald Trump is not all bad. He's just mostly bad. So, you know, and Adolf Hitler did a lot of things that were good too. I guess you can compare that. He came up with a lot of the like Kindergeld and a lot of good things that Germany still has to this very day. He passed a lot of laws through that way. And it's like social problems, things, because, you know, he was a socialist, actually, Adolf Hitler. That surprised you, you know? Well, wait a minute, he was a fascist, and fascist is far right, and socialism is far left. So how can he can't be I don't understand. Well, see, that's the whole problem when they try to fool you and they can steer you around and tell you this is a person that's left and that one is right when, you know, it's all mixed anyway. And Donald Trump is a conservative. Well, he's definitely not a conservative. He's the opposite of a conservative. I mean, that's how they fool us all, you know. So you have to sit there and say, well, what is the real definition? Candace Owens was even bringing that out. Well, who's in charge of definitions? It's absolutely incredible. And yeah, what else? Other people have cheated the Iranians too. So anyway, actually, when you think about it, the Iranians, they should actually be producing somebody like Adolf, but they don't. And you know why that is? They have this long culture, 5,000 years, and maybe they can draw on whatever things happened in the past, and it protects them in the present. Absolutely amazing. The United States is a very young country, and for all practical purposes, and you think about this, when this happened to Germany, Germany became a country in what, 1870? What is it, like nearly 100 years after the United States became a country. So they're actually a newer country than the United States, even though they do have some old traditions and things. It's very interesting, and I'm not saying it's the old traditions that saved Iran, but I think it probably helped. So I guess it's good to have maybe some of these old traditions and rely on your history. It's just a thought. Anyway, people, I hope I hit everything that I wanted to hit on that one. So everybody, it's an hour. It's always an hour. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.